one place to start is to have a recommendation that the town manager's job description, which includes lots of stuff, should also include just a sentence or a brief paragraph that the town manager's responsible for making sure the town is enforcing its own regulations and decisions, period. And then the town manager can figure out how to do that anytime, and then can be held accountable by the Board of Selectmen in the annual review for its implementation. And I don't know why the board wouldn't agree to put it in a job description. That's one thought, John.
I think that makes sense. I would just caution that with saying that, like, ZBA decisions, planning board decisions, well, how about planning board decisions? They're made by the elected officials. So I'm not sure that Libby can be accountable for, or the town manager can be.
Well, let's talk about that for a
Yeah.
In theory, the enforcers are not the elected officials of the ZBA
Mhm.
or the planning board or the select board.
Mm-hmm.
The enforcers are the town staff that administrate and work with those committees or
And-
other parts of the organization as
Okay.
designated by the organization chart, for example,
Okay.
and they are responsible
And ultimately,
for the
there's
decisions of the
yeah.
ZBA.
I
If the
see.
staff wasn't responsible for making sure they're followed, then why even bother to have them? Because no one will follow them.
You're certainly not wrong.
So like HDC, it's going to be, the HDC is responsible for at least being aware of violations and following up.
I think then they would go to, who's the guy these days?
Hedden, John Hedden, yeah.
And they'd start with him. And if
Yep.
he doesn't follow up and make sure it happens, then he should be held responsible. it seems to me.
I agree with that. I think that's, well, yeah.
So I think it might be helpful to, anyway, suggest that at some point, all the people in those types of positions be reminded that they
Sure.
have a responsibility.
But that's the town manager's job to remind them.
That's why I would like to put it
Yeah.
in
I
the
would
town
think that
manager's
makes
job
Okay.
Put it
description.
in one place and let her do her job, let him or her, because the
Yep.
I'm
town
happy to
manager-
have them do their job as long as it's there. Right now, if you go to the performance evaluation of the town manager, there's not a hint in the form to suggest this is something they pay attention to. So unless a member says, oh, I'm gonna comment on that, it's silent.
Understood.
Then
Okay.
That's a good recommendation.
I think that's excellent. Okay, terrific.
And I think that's a one entry place, and then it can trickle
Yeah,
down.
that's
as
right.
needs be. You don't want 4 different people responsible. You want one person,
Yep,
let them delegate.
I think that makes
Okay.
plenty of sense.
Check.
All right. All right. Next topic that I had was the role of government study committee within the charter. So this was fine, really. It only shows up in 2 places, section 1118 and 1119. And my only comments on this were that I would recommend that that we make a change, and we can certainly discuss it with perhaps the select board. That two aspects of it, saying in 2010, every 5 years thereafter, the government study committee shall be constituted and undertake the responsibilities of, et cetera, et cetera. And 7 members appointed by the board of selectmen, each for a term of 1 year. 2 things would be: one, I'm not sure that realistically 1 year terms a 1 year term makes sense, just given sort of the pace that all these have been going at. It would seem to me that at least a 2 year term, or perhaps
I would
3.
say 2. If you say 3, it sort of becomes a permanent.
How about the term until the job is completed?
Yeah, and I think that's fine. I think
Or
we can
they're
use.
fired?
Or
Yeah.
2
Yeah.
years, or until the job is complete. Or,
Well,
Yeah,
I'm just trying to get at it.
I think we can use the term of art there to say,
Yeah.
which is fine. And the other one would be, I think that we should give discretionary language to the select board that if they feel as though the committee needs to be called earlier than every 5 years, that they could do so. It just simply stating something to the effect of,
or as needed.
or as needed, but no longer than 5 years. Basically, that they can do it before 5, but 5 is sort of the ceiling for length. So that's what I had That's what I had for that. And the question that I had on section 19, which was the sort of the mission of the government study committee within the charter. When we ultimately, this committee is going to be making recommendations to town meeting to change the charter or work on the form of government. And the question is, should we be running these by, should any of these articles be sponsored by the select board, or should it be coming from us? Sort of what are, even though we were appointed by the select board, what is
What
the
happened
committee's
to the
role?
last committee when Al was chair?
I
We're
think
not allowed to put them in.
they're not allowed to put.
We aren't. Even the ZBA can't put warrant articles in.
See, I
We
wasn't
have to
sure
come
if it was
through
going to be if we
planning
do it
board, come
as
through the selectmen.
okay.
Unless we do it as citizens.
As citizens,
warrant, and
that was the
I
question.
wouldn't do this, anything from here, as citizens warrant.
But it's interesting, I think, let me go back to last time, there were 4 or 5 articles at
Yeah.
town meeting. My recollection is they were citizen articles. I may be wrong,
I don't
Yeah.
believe
I don't
so.
know that the board of selectmen endorsed them to go on, but they might have, I just don't.
They
Well,
I would think
endorsing
that'd be really
themselves.
politically a bad thing to do.
Well, I can check with Alan. I'll see what he
So,
did last
well,
time.
can we just be
Yeah.
clear then, that gives the select board a veto power on getting our proposals before
Right.
town meeting, and do we want that, or should we have that?
And that,
I don't
which
think
is sort of
we
what I'm
should
bringing
stand
up.
back them.
Yeah.
I think we should let them know if that's the track that we're taking, the CPC does put in our own, so the selectmen can't monkey with it again. But we were appointed by the selectmen to make recommendations. I would hate to sandbag them and go behind their back and put them in. That way.
I don't think anybody's recommending we not inform them what we want to do. The question is, if we felt something was important and they disagreed, what happens?
Yeah,
And I think we need to decide about
That's a
that
protocol.
before we get to it.
Yep, I think that's reasonable, and I'm not sure what, and that may be a good conversation to have with, say, Libby and Lauren Goldberg, and just what the procedure is.
And Linda, the CPC does those as citizen articles now, I'm pretty sure?
we have since the first time they
Right.
monkeyed with it and we said never again, and we put it in
Interesting.
ourselves.
I understand, so.
Interesting.
But
Okay.
that's somewhat a similar issue, because you
Yeah.
didn't like the monkey with it, which was a quasi veto issue.
CPC
Exactly.
is in a different ballgame. We were constituted by the state enabling act. We adopted the CPC, which means we had to adopt us, and we do hearings and yada, yada, yada. This is a little bit more of an advisory capacity, and I don't know, as a government study committee, we can put them in, but you as the chairman could take the first
Yeah.
signature. Ken takes the first signature on the CPC stuff.
So, we'll have to figure that out.
Yeah, that's so. Otherwise, I think the language is relatively okay. The mission is relatively okay. But
Interestingly, the Falmouth, I emailed back and forth a couple of times with the Falmouth, they have a government study committee of some kind, I forget the name of it, and they came back and said our charge is really not to look at the form of government. Their charge is more limited to internal processes, procedures, and bylaws. It was just a little strange. They may not have another way to look at their
Yeah.
charter, but that's what they said. It's
really,
interesting. yeah.
As a were they charter commission or just
Well,
town
I'll be
town
happy to
Government
share the
Study
emails with
Commission.
you, because I emailed them, asked them, I said, I'd like to talk to you guys. I'm curious what's going
Yeah.
on.
In-
And that's how they came back.
interestingly, I've gotten the impression and sense that the town administration would prefer us to be doing more of a bylaw and sort of internal processy review, and I don't looking through the explicit language of the charter of the Government Study Commission, I don't see that as our charge at all. But
I
that's
think bylaws
that's
can come up
neither here nor
every
there.
year.
What do you mean
as-
bylaws? Town code?
Yeah.
That's not what we're here for.
We agree with
I agree,
that,
yeah.
but that doesn't mean that the, when you listen to the select board or town administration, they often kind of suggest that we ought to be doing.
Well, then they have to redo their charter to us.
Okay, so all right, well that's good. I will
Functioning under an existing charge.
Yes, that's
exactly. And we're not about to change that.
But
all right,
so
yeah.
it's just a question of the manner in which we wanna introduce ultimately
I-
what we are going to introduce, but to me, by definition, if we felt something was important, whether the select board agreed or not, I would think we would wanna submit it for consideration.
Well, as Linda said,
Yeah.
with Ken being the first signature on CPC, you would
Mhm.
be the first signature. on
Right.
Yeah.
Ken, so, if needs be.
If it comes to that. All right, and the last topic that I had the pleasure of looking at were the various commissions, such as licensing commission, sewer commission, and a parking commission. I'll tackle the licensing and sewer together because they seem to be, I don't want to say flat out no-brainers, but I think that these two ideas would receive a lot of support both within the town, and I think they'd be relatively easy to implement. Assuming we agree that we should be doing that, I think the conversation would be with Libby and with David Gray for sewer to see how he would want it sort of set up, if there are certain, how many committee members and where ideally they would be coming from, similar to sort of Board of Health. And same with licensing, except instead of David Gray, it would be with Amy Baxter. No?
Let's just say licensing commission.
Okay. Not Amy Baxter?
Don't specify.
Well, I mean, I thought she'd handled all the licensing, that's why I was.
Is that the woman who's been doing it, used to be downtown, now she's out here, sort
Yeah.
of under the police department?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Linda, I think the function should be identified, but not the individual.
Oh, no, and
At
that's,
all.
John he wasn't recommending it in quite that way. I
no, it was just trying to get input from the people who would be most
In
directly
other words,
involved.
commentary.
And
That's-
take
yes.
it away from the selectmen so they don't have to
Well,
get bogged down.
No, that's right, that's the point, to get it off the select board's plate and put it in the hands of somebody else. And the parking commission,
Let me comment. if I
Yes,
might.
please.
I come in and get my chicken permits. It's a real pain in the ass to come out here to get in line and make an appointment to get a $10 chicken permit. I don't understand why they moved her out of the town building where it was accessible.
Because they took her out from underneath town administration and put her under the
Police?
administration out here, yeah. And there's parking out here. And people were moaning and groaning, they couldn't get to her downtown. So where there's parking, there's people. And then
So,
she's and the people are after her all summer.
What does she administer as a licensed person? What liquor licenses? Do we have a list?
I imagine we can get one from.
Well, I'm just
town.
curious.
The ones that I can think of off the top of my head would be liquor license, CV license, entertainment license. That's all.
There are other,
I'm sure there are plenty of others,
Yeah.
but those are the
Well,
only
I'd
ones I
be
can.
curious what it is, because obviously
We
you're
should get
going
a
to
list of
building,
what
if
they've
you're gonna do something there, and you're going
Yeah.
to zoning, and you're
Nope.
going to sewer, and I like the way they put David Gray on top of the sewer permit.
Agreed.
Now you have to go out to the sewer plant if you're gonna, on a building permit to get your sewer sign off, because I got 3 sign-offs I have to go out and do.
yep,
Which is okay, because it's in the appropriate place. When
Mhm.
Barry Butler was here, he just would come around and sign the cards, which was great. But I'm curious what licensing involves.
Sure.
So if we could get just
I
a
think
list
that's
for the
fine.
hell of it.
I think that makes
because
sense.
when Ann retired from downtown across from the selectman's office years ago, that's when they started combining a lot of the
Yeah.
licenses, and that's when pretty much it started moving towards here.
Yeah.
And then parking commission, I'm not sure if we're ready for something. It was mentioned sort of off the cuff, I believe, during one of our discussions with Libby.
Well, the board brought, I think, to town meeting, what is it, district
Yeah,
parking
that's right.
commission?
Parking and
And-
transportation.
And they, no, not just parking, I think, primarily downtown, but so the board has the authority delegated to it to establish already such a commission.
Well, we've had surveys, several surveys. What's the result of that? I'm curious.
So,
Surveys for what purpose?
About
parking, I
what
think.
kind of parking do you
Oh,
want?
yeah, well, that's.
They're
all
saying they're
over the
gonna
lot.
establish a parking district next year. That's what I heard.
That's right, and they've talked about that. All I'm saying is that I don't know that we need to go further than they've already
Already
done.
got it?
yeah, in going back to when I said we have our sort of our 3 tiers, I think all of these commissions are within to I think they should really be closer to the third tier where they're saying, look, this is not necessarily within our purview. I mean, we can just add in there sufficiently vague language that town administration or the town manager can set up such
say,
commissions.
I'm not so sure. I
They
So the
think,
selectmen have to set them up, she
Yeah.
didn't set up any of that.
yeah, and even beyond that, I think you may want some of this in the charter about licensing. If it isn't clear in the charter who's responsible to issue the
And
license
what they're responsible for.
and what they're responsible for, we might wanna make that distinction.
Okay.
And the same
I can be talked into it,
Yeah,
that's
that's
fine.
a
With the
different one.
sewer commission has to be in the charter. There's certain
And,
things that
and
we
the
need
sewer
to put in the
commission
charter.
will be interesting, does that include the ability to tax for sewage or not? Just to
They
start
should be under their
thinking
purview.
about that.
Is the health department in the charter now, as a separate?
Board of Health has always been in the charter, as far as I remember.
But the selectmen were the Board of Health, and now it's an independent board, is that, has the charter been
That's a
amended?
good question, Curtis, I don't remember.
I wonder if we should look it up.
Yeah, we probably should.
That was one of those things we could do by town meeting without having to go back to the state to amend the charter. And I
So-
think when they set up the independent BOH, it was like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
That was done at town meeting.
Yeah, interestingly, I'm not sure it has.
Question is, did it get in
Made
the
it.
charter?
I don't.
I
I'm not.
think it
I'm,
was a charter amendment, maybe?
You know, I think we ought
I'll
to
have
ask
to control
Lauren
that.
Goldberg or through
Yeah.
Libby to sort of comment on each of
Yeah,
these and
yeah,
make
right.
a,
Yep.
I mean, clearly the board has already opined, they want a licensing commission, they want the district parking authority, and on the sewer committee, I'm not sure they've really decided yet, so.
Did
Well, that-
Lauren ever get back to us on reviewing our charter, or we still have to circle back on that?
She gave some preliminary comments, but I.
We need to force that. We
Sure.
need to get that done, because there's stuff that we may be missing. That she says that state law has changed and we need to get updated, just these rudimentary things.
Yeah.
We need to get her to go through that charter and
Line
give
by-
us an entire list.
Yeah.
The sooner the better, so we're not going down a road that she says we can't go down, or we need to go down another road we haven't even considered.
Sure. Sure. That's fine. Reach out to her again. So that's all that I had on mine. So I will follow up with Libby and the appropriate and Lauren Goldberg and all the other appropriate members and just sort of see where things stand, but let them know this is where we're looking about that. All right.
If I could suggest.
Yes. Please.
In the pecking order, since I had said earlier my 3 options, since I had the town council option as a more restricted or smaller group, I'm wondering if Rick could talk more about represent town meeting and the Falmouth experience as our next step, if that's where you're going.
I think so.
Is that on your agenda that way?
Yeah,
Do you
it's
guys have reports to make that I
I mean,
missed?
it's whatever. If we want to go around in a circle, that's fine. If somebody wants to jump in, if Rick wants to jump in about representative, that would be
Trevor,
terrific too.
what do you have?
Well, I think Curtis came on after we met with Suzanne Kennedy.
Oh, sure, I sat in.
Were you, because she had some real reservations about representative.
Yeah, I know. No, I was just thinking your order of reports, did you have a report?
I do not have a report.
Chris, did you have a report?
I'd be happy to take that out, I'm not prepared today, sort of pluses and minuses, but
Well, maybe descriptive, I mean, we were
yeah,
just
well,
talking.
my impression, is really based on sort of going to the Falmouth website and
Yeah, right.
figuring
Yeah.
out how it works and looking at the annual ballot, which is overwhelming. I mean, I think they have like, I don't know, let's say 13 districts and something like 19 or 20 representatives from each district to get up to the number Curtis talked about.
200 plus, you might.
200, 300 members. And so there's a significant number of people,
As representatives of the entire population.
right, but divided by districts.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's a big Falmouth, it's a big
Geographic
area.
and,
'Cause they include
not every
control and
district
everything
is
else.
fully occupied with members who choose to run.
Right.
And I'm not sure whether you really end up getting a different mix of people. In other words, if the people who go to town meeting are generally those people interested, and you assume they'll run, like Curtis said he would run, or Linda would run, we all might run.
Right.
You might get the same folks coming in as elected reps as opposed to an open town meeting. So whether you really get something different, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You do get a commitment by them. They
That's
sort of sign a
right.
piece of paper, say, I promise to show up.
A commitment is what I'm looking
And
for.
that's a big difference. So they probably get, 80%
And they do their
attendance or
homework
something.
and they come prepared to
Right.
discuss issues.
Right.
So
And then they have a town meeting with those 300 people, just like our town meeting.
But others can attend and speak, but they can't vote.
And there are, I think, I'm not sure how you can get articles on, I haven't gone that far into it, to know whether a citizen has the right to get X number of
Yeah.
signatures. I think they can always petition, but whether you have it right, I don't know yet.
So this may be a foolish question, but in such an instance with a representative town meeting, how does the representative ensure that they are
Representing their people?
exactly, like, I mean, how, do they, just
Reach
anecdotally,
out
like,
to their
yeah,
people?
do they
Well,
have, like,
they
meetings at their
do
house,
have-
or, I'm curious.
There are sort of emails or correspondence in the Falmouth area on their website. They are I'm pretty sure that they're supposed to have a separate meeting of each district in a way to think
Sure.
about that job, but I'm not certain about
Okay,
that. Whether it's required or not, clearly you could have the Hooper Farm
Yeah.
district meeting before town meeting.
Right,
And Bartlett
Take the
Farmers.
temperature.
yeah, no, it's fascinating,
There's one just for Sunset Drive,
Mhm.
6 of them, and it's,
yeah.
are we
No,
gonna
we
be
would
like?
be the North Liberty, Sunset, Westchester.
Right, you have to,
Yeah.
populations would have to be equal presumably. It's
Yeah.
It's
not
gonna be
like the
hard
Senate.
for Grant Point and certain other areas in Walnut,
sure.
that's gonna be almost impossible to make sure that they're served. So
It's,
there's,
it's an interesting gerrymandering question,
yeah, if we
but,
could.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I've
it's
always
curious,
said-
yeah.
Won't win it.
Frankly, been a little concerned about that when you have a mix of, what do we have, 2,000 or 2,500 residential exemptions?
Mm.
Not sure what the number is,
Mostly in Mid-Island.
mostly in Mid-Island, but
Mm.
so that all the folks paying the bills out of town, if you have equally populated districts by voters, I think some of those folks are gonna be very overwhelmed by the voters, let's put it that
And what do
way.
you got, 3 people who live in Brant Point year
Yeah,
round?
one
But it-
in it has one, I
Do
mean,
you know, Rick, in Falmouth, are the district lines sort of drawn by the year-round population?
that's a good, I don't know, but that's a good question right there, do you draw them by
It's an
the
interesting
voter
one.
list?
Yeah.
In which case, Brant Point's gonna be included with half a town, or whatever the number is, and then are they properly represented, so you gotta think about
Right, cause
that.
their issues down there with the flood zone and everything out are much different than those who are up on Lincoln Circle even.
Mhm.
So,
So,
it's, and I would go the other direction and go to allowing, electronic voting, and that would open it up to more people who can't get there.
I'd at least like to see electronic voting at town meeting itself, and others are coming along, it's getting
Yeah.
better and better, so.
But Jason sort of threw the gauntlet down when was on the front page of the paper last month about his
Yeah.
town meeting obsolete.
Yep.
So I think that's sort of something we're gonna have to talk about at great length, and maybe get more people in here from various other places as to how to deal with a population which is outnumbered 4 to 1
Well,
in the summer.
so when I met with when I had to give an update to the select board, I did mention that something to the effect of, if representative town meeting or change to town meeting is something that the select board is looking for as a recommendation for us, it's a topic that requires a lot of study, and I said, you may want to pay a consultant
Come
to
and
have
talk
to come and figure out how to implement it. So this would, my recommendation, if we get to that point, as silly as it sounds, my recommendation would be that the select board basically take it up, I don't know, as a non-binding ballot question or something,
Or give this consultant to us and we'll
Or-
vet it.
or something, or even set up its own committee to
Just one other
investigate.
thought, I've heard a little bit from Curtis or other people that, we need to change, or whatever Jason said. I'd like to be more specific about what what really the issues are that cause them to want to change.
Yep.
The quorum is one thing, but that's been what, once in 20 years, I'm not, maybe twice, I don't know. What are the other issues? Are they really concerned about stacking the meeting? Are they
How about the
concerned the
teachers
votes
voting
didn't
on
go
the
with
budget?
them?
Remember a couple of years
Yeah.
ago, the teachers walked out, half the room emptied after the budget.
The
was
same thing
passed.
after the vote on, domestic partners.
Yeah.
There were 800 people, we were in the gym, there were so many of us,
Right,
they were.
and the real
typing-
estate agents often
Typing it into
do
the
the
gym,
same
I broke
Yeah.
the tie in favor of.
The lawyers do it,
domestic
and
partners.
I'm
No,
saying, but
no.
Out of the volleyball game and dragged my sorry ass back into the town meeting, and it passed by like one vote, and they went and got me and brought me back into the room.
It's a very good point though, Rick, because I'm not sure what the issue is. Issue is such a vague term, but are people apathetic for the process? Do they not like the result? Are they?
Don't have the
Is
time?
it the wrong location? What is the problem?
so ask yourself, if the
Time of year
select board
is a problem.
members always won the vote at town meeting, would they want to change?
Yep,
And my guess is they wouldn't.
I think you're probably right.
So if they don't like the vote on the roundabouts, then they don't like town meeting, and that's a bad reason.
Well, I think what I kept hearing after this last go around in the fall is that 250 people, a lot of them special interest there for one reason or another, were telling the other 50,000 people what to do. And I think that's wrong. I am so disgusted with the fact that we've had such a low turnout even in the spring. And we had such a ridiculously low turn. We couldn't even pass some of the financial ones in the fall because we didn't have a quorum.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just reprehensible on our part as members of this community and voters that we don't bother to show up. So that, in a nutshell, is what I hear over and over and over, that the tail is wagging the dog. And that's where people are having a problem, that these things, these crazy things pass or don't pass, and things that really need to pass, but special interests don't want them to pass, is all done by 250 people.
But
That
here's
is
the-
wrong.
There's a problem here. You go to town meeting and you vote something like the roundabout. But then you have to go to the ballot. And the people who don't go to town meeting
Are
vote
different.
at the ballot.
Ballot and vice versa.
They're the ones who should have been at town meeting voting up or down, but they're not going because maybe they're unhappy with the form. But
Or
the
they're
bottom
older,
line is
or they're
when you
older.
go to the ballot box to approve spending money, that's the real vote.
Yep.
And-
Not on zoning and not on all the other stuff,
Well-
but yes, definitely overrides and things like that.
And,
But, yep.
the message that I get when I hear that is, we think you should do a better job of planning the finances so you're not throwing us all these permanent overrides on our tax base, which is happening more and more lately.
Or take all the finance issues to the annual town meeting. What's the big, anyway, and 300 people, if you had the representative form of government, you'd still have 300 people making the decision. The only difference is presumably they're elected.
Better informed, I think.
Yeah.
Better informed, hopefully, but they are elected, so.
Or we go to a town council, like a lot of towns have gone to in this state.
So
They
then
have a
you'd have.
mayor or something along those lines,
Well,
or
if
they
you-
have,
But Linda, then if you look to Barnstable, 13 people are making the decision for, in their case, what, 100,000 people?
but that's the same thing as electing an idiot for president. I mean, it's still, people are electing, you have to sell yourself to your constituents in order to get elected, and you have to represent your year-round population or your summer population in Harwich or whatever. I just think 250 people running the show here can be stacked, and we've seen it stacked many times. And I foresee being it stacked in April on a couple of issues.
Well, so I mean, I think there's probably a myriad of reasons why people don't turn out for town meeting or what have you. I mean, it does, like, fundamentally, it does feel to me like the system isn't working in terms of I'm gonna say the representation. Like, to me, like, I would feel good under, and I'm not sold any particular way, but I would feel good more, or I'd feel better under a representative system because people had elected those representatives, the representatives are committed to show up so business can happen. And whatever the outcome of that is, it would just feel more vetted or considered than our current system. I mean, it is a little bit like, okay, if I can turn out 12 more people on any particular item versus the representative system, feeling like it is more, a little bit more the will of the overall community, but not everyone's gonna turn out and vote for the representative either.
I think the
Nothing's perfect. Yeah.
representative system, I'm not arguing for it, by the way.
No,
I'm
yeah,
saying there
I'm
are
not
these
either.
three
Yeah.
options that
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
looking at. But the representative system suggests to me that the people who are elected from a district would have had a meeting and gotten some consensus and explained to the people in their district where they were coming from and listening to it. But they're gonna go to the town meeting better informed and prepared to make a good decision instead of an emotional decision or a bullet decision.
I agree with that.
And it
That's,
can't stack the meeting necessarily, because we represent so many different groups of people there.
But I think it would be important that the representative system drew lines so that it was proportional to the year-round population within whatever the district was.
Probably gonna be proportional to the voters. In other words, if you have
That's what I'm
8,000 registered voters, those are the people who get to make the selection.
Right, but by definition, they're year-rounders.
well, you could have
There are
three
about
districts in
100
Surfside.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah, the
150,
resident.
there's 150 households out in the Badlands, all year round, versus the 2 households down in Brant Point that are year round. It's not going to be like the Senate, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, even though majority of
Right.
your population's in California and the East Coast. It's going to be representative of how many registered
Right.
voters in the Badland district versus the Quidnet, Squam,
Yeah.
But are they
Winnick district
thinking in
versus
the best
Hoop Farm?
interest of the town in so doing? I mean, the summer people who live out in Quidnet, they come here to play, we live here. So we've gotta deal with the living here part of this
Yep.
situation.
But I think if you had, again, I'm like Curtis, I'm not arguing for it, I'm just sort of
Yeah.
considering it, but one thing is I think that if you had a system like that, that those representatives would probably hear not only concerns from the locals, but probably hear some of the concerns of the seasonal residents as well in, you know, if there's a designated person, they know who to go to,
Yeah.
and that will inform them in any event.
Let's say I lived in Wauwinet,
Yeah.
just for the hell of it, or Tim Madden lives out there.
Right.
If I were a representative in that area of the island, however you define it, I would get together a meeting in the summer.
Yes,
yeah.
And
Yeah.
say,
Absolutely.
hey, folks, come on,
right.
we're here to help you enjoy being in Nantucket. Tell us what your problems are. Let us help you you help us do the job for you. So convening a meeting like that in the summer would be very appropriate, even though those people can't
But I
vote.
don't think you wanna represent the non-voting taxpayers
Sure you
with
do.
the year-round residents.
But I wanna hear
Sure.
what they have to say, what their
Right, yeah,
concerns
yeah.
are.
What they have to say.
I don't represent them. I don't want them to elect me. I wanna hear what their concern is
Right.
about Pulpus Road traffic or,
Right.
you know,
So
And-
Surfside,
They might
Surfside
want-
South is like that, Surfside South versus Surfside North versus Surfside West, which is what the Badlands is.
yeah.
Each group, Daffy Evergreen has their own issues up there, the guys down in Nantucket and down, you know, Western Avenue, those guys have their own issues down there, most of them are not year-round. And then most of us are year-round in the Badlands, all 3 sections have something different, but you have to talk to the people that own property there. So you can represent all of your property owners, but the voting is done by.
But this would give you a
obviously,
structure
year-round.
to do that, whereas
Where they're not
now,
getting it
there is no
now.
opportunity
Right.
for them to have anything to say.
Well, that's one of the other things we talked about.
I was gonna say, this is
earlier.
a pretty good segue into yours.
Well, yeah, just, you know, the idea of, not that seasonal resident voters here, but how do we listen to them,
Right.
or have the opportunity for them to be heard maybe more than the advisory committee of non-voting taxpayers
Right.
allows, and that's perfect, what you were describing.
Well, see, we have this summer meeting for non-voters, but all of the non-voters of the whole island can
Right.
come to that summer meeting.
Yeah.
That doesn't do what Linda's
Right.
saying, say, what's the problem in this particular
No,
area?
exactly.
Well,
And-
we do have on the island neighborhood
Neighborhood, yes,
association
Grand Point has
meetings
one,
Yep.
already.
Tom Never has one,
So there are
Surfside
20
has
of
one.
them,
Yeah.
which are somewhat like what you're talking about.
Yeah,
but
Civic
they
League
don't
has one.
elect direct.
No, I understand,
representatives.
Right.
but they would be an organization where presumably some of the reps might go for discussion purposes.
Oh,
Oh,
absolutely.
yeah.
Here's what's going on, tell me what you're interested
But out of
in.
those meetings, no one is designated to carry that concern to the town
I
meeting.
understand,
Right.
unless
Well,
one
that
of
would
them
be an
happens to
elected
be
person.
elected.
There's enough year-round people, just enough, in almost every single district we could possibly create here. Especially if Quidnet, Wallwinet, and Squam, cause you're out there, Quidnet, Wallwinet, Squam. There's enough people there to have people represent those three areas put together.
They'd have to block vote to get overcome somebody else.
So there are enough year-round people in all these little hamlets all over the place that we could pull from. It's just that the majority of the year-round population is mid-island.
Even if the decisions were exactly the same as, say, before, I just think they would be better considered.
Feel better.
It would feel better,
Yeah.
for sure, yeah.
I think maybe we should get Suzanne back again.
It's like you feel better about Congress? I say no.
Not right now.
Well, I'm just posing the
I
question.
feel
I feel
better
better
about
about the House of
some of Congress.
Representatives, not the Senate, but the House of Representatives, I feel better.
to think we can perform better.
Fingers crossed. If there's one takeaway, we can do better.
I think understanding more pros and cons and a closer
Yeah.
discussion with Falmouth would be helpful.
I think it's an idea that seems to be gaining more and more traction, and my sense is we'll probably have an increase in interest in April and in May
We
again
don't have time to wait.
after town meeting. But I'm just saying that I imagine this topic is not going to necessarily
Well,
go
the
away.
question, I think, picking up on Rick, is I made a field trip to Barnstable, and I just met with a couple of people, but one or two of us could go to Falmouth or invite someone
Sure.
from Falmouth to come over here to talk one-on-one.
I'd rather have somebody come over here.
Well, we'd have to.
If they're
find-
willing. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just so happens that our friends, Kirill and Judy Coonley, who lived on Cliff Road, now live in Falmouth, and I just made a note, I'm gonna call Kirill and say, hey,
Nice.
how's
How's this work?
Well, I think if it were possible to go and visit with, if it was possible to assemble half a dozen or a dozen of their representatives over a coffee or something, I think we'd get more hearing
I do
from more
too,
than one
and that's
voice.
why
Yeah.
I deliberately went to Barnstable.
Yeah.
As my report said, the town manager walked out on me because he had a crisis, his health department, they were trying to vote stuff.
Well, we could do a fam trip.
But I think going out there and sitting down and making a date to sit down with a couple of people, make it a day trip. I have a car over there that we can put some
I
people
have
in.
access to a car.
Cool.
I would like to do that as an alternative to having one person come over here and tell us.
Okay.
That sounds exciting, frankly.
Gotta get action here.
Yeah, this is good. This is good.
Because I think that, of everything we could possibly come up in here, Parks and Rec, like through the Council on Aging, because we need some clarification on that. Lauren going through the thing piece by piece, Civil Commission's Licensing Commission, I think everybody's still focused on type of town meeting, type of government, type of town meeting, those things. That's all I ever keep hearing about. What are you guys doing? Are you talking about that? Are you talking about that? I hear from Nat every day. Are you talking about that focus?
Right.
And I said, yeah, we are talking about that, but we're also talking about all this other stuff. I don't care. I just want town meeting and form of government.
Okay. All right. Well, do we have anyone else want to talk about?
Well, I just
position, or
want to tell you, I sent out
Please.
this piece of paper and I didn't meet with him. I originally thought that it was, Barnstable was a representative town meeting, so unlike the degree of representation, I found out that there's a town council, there are 13 councilors, and it's an ongoing thing. They don't have a town meeting, they don't have a warrant, they have a town council, meets every 2 weeks. They have a lot of very active committees, and if you look at their chart, their committees are tangential to the council. So there's a lot of input and suggestions and commentary that's fed to the council. Obviously, the town manager as the executive sorts and facilitates. But I was there the day that the town manager stood up, and the council there has a raised dais. It looks like the Supreme Court. The town manager was at the podium addressing the 13 councilors, making a pitch for a particular, I think it was on this health department thing. So they really were sitting there listening. As I say, the Supreme Court came to mind, but they told me it's not quite like that. But there's always input. In other words, citizen input comes from committees here and there, and then it's brought.
And citizens coming under public comment to the meeting.
Yeah, of course. But the question is, how do you get input? And that's one way they do through a structure. If you look at their chart. Anyway, they're the legislative group, as I've said, and the town manager runs things. It seemed sort of like the representative system, but with a smaller group of people elected. Again, districts. They have about 4,000 people in each district to compose of the 13 councilors. So much bigger representation. I sort of like the other one that we're talking about. And I really like the idea of having district meetings in the off season when the summer people are here. So I'm
It sounds,
hearing, anyway.
looking at your memorandum, it sounds like for Barnstable at least, they are focused on, or the advantage that would be efficiency, that they can get things done very quickly, very
Without waiting for a vote of town.
exactly.
Yeah, you don't have to wait a year
I'm
to
not
wait.
yeah.
And you don't have to get 10 signatures and put
Yep.
a 100-page warrant together
Yep.
to have something happen.
I think it also saves money for the town, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But
it's
I want to address
it's
this
interesting.
while we're sitting right there on that, while you just mentioned it. I think the 10 signature thing to cause the kind of ridiculous, irresponsible chaos for the pool thing. I think the 10 signatures is ridiculously minimal. If you want to do something at town meeting, special town meeting, it's 100, I think. But if you wanted to do something at town meeting, you need to put the effort in, and you need to get people to agree instead of blindly signing like I run through every
You
attorney's
get 10
office on
people in
Nantucket.
10 minutes at the post office.
Yeah,
If
I
that,
get-
yeah.
you know how long it takes me to get them all. I ran 11 around for the attorneys at one point. But I think 10 signatures, that's in the charter. I know it's
They come
based-
out of one law office.
It
believe me,
has-
it has.
If you
It
look
has.
closely,
Where it is, too.
It has, I hit all the law offices.
No, I understand, I'm just pointing out
oh no, it's
how it works.
true.
And then I hit the real estate offices, and then I hit if I need to go there. But I think the 10 signature thing, I know it's based on population or some other thing, but that's in the charter. We need to deal with that 10 signature thing. You need to put the effort out, you need to get people to really consider what they're signing, or you need to get people to buy into it, or whatever. But 10 signatures to put something like the stupidity of the pool thing in here
Now,
is ridiculous.
don't pick on that one.
I've been in, I had to get clients approved and pools approved, and we're 80 freaking permits stuck down at the Board of Health. And every one of these pool owners, except maybe a couple, are thrown into nonconformity. And that's diametrically opposed to Chapter 40A of the state. So that's irresponsible on the proponent's part completely. And I have a whole speech on town meeting floor for that, how irresponsible a planning board member can be. But it's that kind of thing that sets people off, because a lot of people are talking about that one in particular, and the chaos that it has caused, even year-round people with pools. That 10 signatures, and the comment is, for 10 signatures, you can create this kind of havoc? That's not
It's-
happy, that's not making people very happy.
We've never done this, but my father-in-law, in his infinite wisdom, once had the idea when he would get very frustrated with the town code and zoning in general.
Which was daily.
He'd say, "Well, what if I just submit a warrant article eliminating zoning?"
Yes, he said that to me.
Yep. Never did it, but
So,
point being made that you create chaos for 3 months.
I don't know where the 10 is it in the charter? Do you remember?
It's in the charter.
So we could have a charter amendment and make it 50.
50.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
something, but we need to look at the qualifiers for a town meeting warrant.
I like
That
the
section.
idea of getting rid of 10, and I don't think we need 100, but 50 is in.
Yeah,
50,
it's sort of
you gotta work to
halfway.
get 50.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah,
I don't mind that, I mean, you know.
but let's take a look at the language that's in there, because that 10 was based on something specific. And I don't remember the exact language of that. I just remember thinking back when we did this original charter, the 10.
So
Seriously.
what's coming next?
So I think one of the things that, well, in addition to making a field trip to Falmouth, which I think is an excellent idea, I think one of the other things that we do need to work on is a realistic timeline and sort of set of agenda and goals
task for each meeting.
Yep, for each meeting and for the winter and for the spring. And I know that it can be tough if people are traveling, if people are here, et cetera, to make sure we have time to get everything done, or at least,
Are we obligated to report at town meeting this year?
no.
Well, that was my other question.
I don't believe so.
I think what we should do, just for our own sakes,
Yeah,
is I think we should have a one-sheet update on where we are and what we're considering, just to hand out on the table at town meeting. So we
That's-
know that we're still around and we are working on this.
It's like free advertising.
Yeah,
There you
I
go.
just
To
think,
invite
this is
people
what
to
we're
get in
working
touch
on,
with
and
us.
this
Sure.
is what and this is how you get a hold of us if we have comments and stuff like that. Just an informational sheet and hand it out, put it on the table.
sure. I think that's an excellent idea. All right, so I think first thing we should do is figure out the next meeting. And I guess in conjunction with that, what will we be tackling at that meeting? Finish the rest of the position papers, do more research,
I'd like you to get a date to go to Falmouth,
Falmouth.
and the question is, should we look at a Saturday when people aren't working? And maybe they don't wanna come and meet with us on a Saturday. I mean, I can go during the week,
I can go on certain days during the
but
week.
it's
Likewise.
just a question of how to schedule that and who to schedule it with. Are you gonna take the point to make that call as chair?
I'd be happy to,
Would you? I think it'd
Sure.
be stronger coming from you,
sure.
and,
9 to 5.
Yeah,
the only thing on my calendar is I'm out of town the 18th of February to the 26th, so that's.
Oh, hopefully before then, and you've got kids that are
Yeah, I
in school
would-
on school vacation.
Oh,
the
that's
following
school
week.
vacation week.
No, the following week.
Yeah, so let's meet like the 10th or.
okay. Now, do you want to try to meet with Falmouth before the 10th, or plan on meeting?
Oh,
Well, I'd
yeah.
love to meet
Okay.
with them before the
Next
10th.
couple
of
so we
weeks,
can
maybe.
have a
Okay.
substantive discussion.
All right, well, why don't we figure
Go on the 25th, since I'm going away on the 26th, and I can just
Stay over there.
There you go.
25th
February
of January?
25th, you
What are
say?
you doing? Finally
Baby
taking your
shower.
honeymoon? No,
Wait, the
okay.
February 25th or?
January.
January
Yeah.
25th. January 25th.
I'm actually,
Um,
I'm headed off
oh.
for something on the phone.
Well, actually, wait a second. Is 21st is the holiday? I might be
Yes.
able to do the 25th
No,
of January.
No, they're all going away.
yeah,
Oh,
I'm
jeez.
going to a conference, but the 24th would be good.
No, I mean, the 25th would work with me, so I
Oh.
can be away for the
When,
26th.
how long will you be away?
And when are you going?
Just the day of the 26th.
There's a conference
Oh.
Andrew wants me to go on the 24th.
I'm thinking more like the first week of February or the last week of January. I mean, time to set it up, but hell, I'll go whenever you want.
I'm all right,
Yeah.
the 24th or the 25th.
Okay. Well, why don't I check with the folks at Falmouth to see what
Yeah.
they can do?
And see who it is we should be talking to.
Yep.
And it should be, hopefully it'd be 2 or 3 people rather than.
I would say the more the merrier,
Yeah.
for lack of a
Yeah,
better
Yeah.
term.
I mean,
invite
yeah,
some
half a dozen.
representatives of the town meeting to.
Okay.
And I don't think
sit
you
with
need to
us,
post
volunteer.
that, I think this is just a
I
fact
No, that's a
finding
good
trip,
one.
and how the hell do you post it? So, yeah, forget it.
Or
All right.
field trip.
okay. And in the
So
meantime,
if we do
yep.
Falmouth, then you wanna set another meeting for
Then
us.
I want to set another meeting for us, which
Yeah.
would
That
conceivably be
last week of January,
the last week of January.
Yep. 28th, Monday,
Yeah. Why don't we shoot
So
for
Are you
Weeks
back
from
by then?
today.
you're back by then, right? And you're back by then?
Right.
28th of
28th.
January?
Yes, 2
Yeah.
weeks
Okay.
from today.
Okay, so why don't we try to shoot for the
2 weeks.
28th of January as a meeting, same,
Try to set that other meeting up for them over there.
128, and we'll try to do 1:00 PM if that time works for everyone, same location.
John, on your little
Yes, sir.
list, you had organization and audit, and at least on audit, maybe
yeah,
if people look at the stuff I sent around, we can talk about it conceptually now if you want to, or what's your pleasure?
I don't
You
have
Wanna
it
wait
with-
till
I don't
next
have it
time,
in
that's
front of
fine
me.
with me.
I say, why don't
Read
we,
it.
Rick, did you,
Yeah.
was that part of what you sent
Yeah.
this morning?
I say,
Or I
why
have it
don't,
in here?
why don't we read it over the next 2 weeks? We'll
This is
prepare
from a
this.
few years ago, but it's the same stuff.
Well, let's make that
And then can you get a hold of
major
Lauren,
agenda item.
see if she can do it between now and the 28th,
Sure.
so we have something to work with? We can consider all the stuff that she wants, she says needs to be changed. But it really requires a commitment from her between now and the 28th.
Yep.
So we're trying to do a field trip between now and the 28th, meet again on the 28th.
Yeah.
And is there kind of a big date or what have you that we're driving?
Well, I would say that the big date that we'd be driving towards would be trying to make sure that we're in a position to distribute something at town meeting.
At town meeting?
Yeah,
And I
so
think-
before
I think
the town
that's-
meeting.
Okay.
And not that any of us are necessarily have to speak at town meeting because we're not presenting anything, but just that we would at least have a, sort of like how land council has their pamphlets, et cetera, that we could put one out just to say, hey,
Where we are, what we're
here-
doing,
here's-
what we
here's-
consider.
Yep.
This is where we are now, where we're going, please comment.
Which would then put us in a good position, I think, for the late spring, early summer to hold public hearings. Certainly try to get
Yeah.
summer
So should we be
input, et cetera.
trying to be back in front of the select board like the week or two before town meeting to let them know what we're?
I would say before that, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
The week before town meeting?
I would say almost even a month before and just say, look, this is what we're
Hey,
trying,
these
this is
are the
what, this is
things
where
that
we
we're-
are.
It's April Fool's Day, so
I
a
know.
month before, it's gonna be the end of February. And you people with kids in the school, which I don't have anymore, are tied up with that.
Well, maybe a couple weeks before.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Let's not
Couple weeks sounds
let's not
more-
be too aggressive.
more
But I would
Or
hope
fine.
that, public hearings would be held like, June, July, August, maybe in September, once a month, to get the population that's here, the non-residents and everything.
Field questions, get input from
Yeah,
them.
I
Yeah, I
think
think
we
that's,
really should do
I think
that.
we have to. Regardless of what we come to a conclusion on with representative council, existing town meeting, it doesn't matter. We still need to have public
And if
input,
three
no
people
matter
show up, that's their problem.
That's,
not ours.
Right.
We tried,
that's exactly it.
okay.
But the
Glad-
idea with that select board meeting is, you know, these are items A to K
Yep.
that we're considering
Yep.
making recommendations around generally
Yep.
or that sort of.
We need some
I think
feedback
Sarah
kind of
would
thing.
want just a report from you as chair as an agenda item on town, I don't see people reporting
I
very
don't-
often.
No,
I don't think
not at
so.
The
town meeting.
handouts
Yeah.
are really the
I
Handouts
think-
is
I think
really
that's
the only
it.
way to go
Yeah,
without
so
something on the
Otherwise you
warrant.
get planning council report.
I think in Falmouth, they do have reports.
Well, that'll be
I'm
Just-
sure
interesting
they
to
do.
That
find
might
out.
not be a reason not to have it.
But it's in
Representative
there.
Todd-
We have the town report, but it obviously ended on June 30th.
But it's not really a policy document, it's just,
No.
says
Right.
here's what we did.
What I'd like you to do though is between now and then, find out if we can set up like we did for the area plans. And the master plan at the planning board, we had an ability through the town website for a, please respond or send in your comments, or here's the link to the charters.
Yep.
So the link would be on that thing, and they could email in comments. We had that for the master plan for several years, people were commenting. But we have no way to get public comment.
Maybe we could have Libby send out like a little blast on her town manager's
Yeah.
newsletter. I mean,
Yeah.
short of
They've
that,
gotta-
I don't know how to get to
They've gotta set
it.
up the
Yeah.
link, and they've gotta put the
Yep.
charter on the link, you know, both charters, the county and the town.
Again, Falmouth has a survey they sent out, which is very different than I think
Yeah.
what's on it. I think I sent that to you, maybe all of you.
But we need to have public have access to us, and we really
Yep.
don't right now. There's nowhere for them to add comment.
Take down on the website.
They're free to come right here.
That's-
Website.
But what, do we have our own little link?
Yeah, no, I
Town
think we
Government
do.
Study Committee? And we need to put that on whatever pamphlet we hand
Every
out.
time people
yeah.
complain on Facebook, I point them to the website.
Perfect.
It's like I
don't
emailed
spend that
Falmouth
much
to
time
their
on
committee, well, it took 10 days to hear back from them, so, you know, who's
Um,
looking?
Yeah, so we have to find a way to deal with that.
Okay. All right, so one other item of other business, I was approached by somebody at, or received a phone call from somebody at FinCom. I believe Teresa Williams submitted another warrant
Well,
article.
I watched that section, John, yeah.
So
What was it, do I have to
Wait,
fix
what's
it
that?
again?
remember
Yeah,
what
yeah, yeah.
I
Mr.
had to fix
Pearson?
it
I think
an hour
there's,
before town meeting last year.
anyway, I think they may be looking for our input
Oh, she
Yeah.
has an article.
yet again on it.
Just
So
the ombudsman.
to
yes,
look
so
at
this appears to be an issue that is not going to be going away. I think all the informal comments I've heard from Copeland and Page saying this is just pure unintended consequences if you try to set something like this
Yeah.
up, that they're going to
I
have.
think,
all
Well,
sorts
Lauren
of-
said there was some danger.
Oh,
some
yeah.
real
Yeah,
danger
yeah.
to it.
Yeah, I
you know, these things only occur, in my opinion, when people don't get the result they want. It's pretty straightforward. And that's what they're doing at FinCom. And FinCom would like to find someone else to say no.
that's
Well, that was one of
And
the
I think
things,
we
Yep.
should vote right now. I mean, I'd be prepared to make a motion that I would not support any kind of formal committee that is set up
as an
to,
ombudsman.
Yeah,
you know,
but
take complaints over and above the current process.
Well, here, let's hold that for a second, through the chair, only because
I would.
we had talked about, we can't really take a vote on it, it's not on here, but we had talked about, going back with Lauren on exactly this issue. We have not circled back on it.
We got some input from town council.
yeah, John
Giorgio.
Giorgio
there's been
about-
yeah.
I just wanted, the ombudsman idea was originally brought up in the context of like kind of the non-voting taxpayer. Then the
Right.
Williams came along with different concerns, and so I think they were looking for like a committee or a quasi judiciary
Yep.
board
Yes.
that
Yep.
was sort of a shadow board to the select board or what have you, which just
can
doesn't
mediate.
make sense, so.
All they want to do is overturn the decision.
Yep.
Right, but I just don't wanna use the
Well,
word
no, it wasn't that,
ombudsman
it wasn't that,
and
But then there
in
was that
Teresa's,
British guy,
Yes.
Yeah,
and
Michael
Yeah.
Pearson,
that's a
yeah.
whole different
And-
ballgame.
that was just to have a board to
Yeah.
report
But
a
he,
complaint
Teresa's
to. But right now
issues-
there was no structure to.
but his was similar to Teresa's.
No, Teresa's issues
Similar-
are
No.
with the school, that's my sister-in-law.
No, I
Teresa's
know.
issue are, she has real, definite,
Yeah.
provable issues with what happened to her son at that school.
No one's
Clifford
debating
has
that.
issues with what happened with Steve Butler that was part of his problem over there, with Steve Butler, because of personal hatred over there. And that was a real issue, and there was nobody to mediate either one of those situations, and they both had merit. That's what they're after, is somebody to be tasked by the selectmen or somebody to mediate those kinds of things, so they have somebody to talk to. They had nowhere to go except legal representation. And short of going lawyer, they wanted somebody in the town hierarchy that had the ability to try to mediate the two sides. That's what they're after. And that's what I wanted to go back to Lauren on, to see if there was something out there that we're not aware of that could be instituted without creating all the other problems that an ombudsman and all this other stuff creates. That's where they're headed. Now, the Teresa's warrant article last year had a lot of technical legal flaws, which is why we fixed it so it could be discussed on town meeting floor. Haven't looked at it, I didn't know she put it in again. So I don't know if it still has the same technical legal flaws that it had last year. But that's what they're after.
But
I
what
don't
she-
know
yeah,
if
but
it comes
what
through the
po-
charter,
The
though.
point is that and I don't dispute that she may have a very legitimate position and, the law essentially on the right side with her. So it doesn't make sense to me if you have this adjudicator, there's no guarantee that that person is gonna rule any differently than whatever the current body
And what's
is that's
binding or
ruling.
not binding.
But so the recourse is through the legal system.
That doesn't always work in, especially education situations.
But it sounds like
Yeah.
they have I'm just gonna say the law on their side, and therefore, the legal system is what it is, but that is the recourse.
Well, here's the problem. Clifford spent like 150 grand just to get that far. That is what they're arguing about. Why are we paying to force the town to do what they're supposed to do in the first place? That's the argument that both of them have, and they both have merit in that, because they both had to spend a lot of money, and then if you run out of money, you're still screwed. So what they're looking for is something in the town, short of everybody going to court and the town expending funds with town council, or the school spending it with their town council. They're looking for something in between that can mediate, so people could talk to each other before it gets that far. So to be, you know, a mediation or
Arbitration.
arbitration, that kind of thing. That's what they're trying to go after. I don't disagree with that, short of everybody going to court or not talking to each other anymore because they all have legal representation. That's what they're after, is that one single step to, short of spending 150 grand to get nowhere.
But don't you normally, John, you would know way better than me, but normally, would you not, if you were in this position where you felt like, you know, clearly the obligation is on the town to pay for my child's education in this instance, there's legal, you know, there's laws that say as such that you would go to your attorney to say, hey, like, this is very clear, and I suggest, you know, if you have a different point of view, that we get together with an arbitrator
Or a
who's
mediator.
a professional
Yep.
mediator now, and let's sort this out. You know, I don't want to cause trouble for you and vice versa. So why, you know, why not use
The
the
school
professional
refused.
mediators?
School refused. That's the problem.
Yikes.
And he didn't even, I'm not sure he graduated. So this is, it's a quagmire, because all my, 5 of my 8 kids are on IEPs, and you have to go after them, and I had to get an attorney one time for one of them. I mean, this is just something that goes on up at that school with the sped department, and it's something that goes on with the building department. Not now, we hired the guy, started today, he seems like a great guy. But there's nowhere for anybody to go to have a conversation across the table like we're having with somebody who's independent, nonpartisan person sitting over there that might be able to come to some sort of agreement, or at least hear both sides so everybody felt like they're being heard, without putting everybody into a hostile corner. That's where they're going.
Well, that's an interesting. That's interesting. I haven't seen the text of the article.
I
I don't
haven't seen it either.
know what it is, but I hear it. I imagine it's going to be bubbling again, but just to keep everyone. I don't think there's anything for us to do at this time, but just keep in mind this may be coming back.
With Lauren one more time,
Yep.
Speak with Lauren on this one particular issue and see if there's something short of craziness
Yep.
that might be palatable, that we could recommend to the selectmen and the school to have this kind of individual that can mediate like that.
Well, it's an interesting idea.
And whether it's binding arbitration or non-binding arbitration, obviously unions deal with this all the time.
All right. Well, we will take that one as it comes. All right. And so we have date and time of our next meeting,
Yeah.
which will be the 28th. I'll make sure the room's available. And I guess we will be in touch about our field trip over to Falmouth. But
That's underwritten by the town, by our budget.
let's hope so.
Since our budget is 0, but
No, I
it
think
should
when they
be.
submit the expenses.
Sure.
Yeah,
I'll let
find
them
out.
know.
And,
Our
what the hell
our
is that?
$8 per diem for lunch.
That's
our-
definitely per diem, ferry, mileage, and lunch.
There you go.
But technically, we're under the auspices of the selectmen's office.
That's right.
so.
Does anybody have any other business? If not, may I have a motion to
Motion to
adjourn
adjourn
at
at
2:21?
2:21.
So moves. There a second?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all.
Thank you. Good meeting today.
Yeah.